This is a suspense question for D. Fahy. We're just going to go through the notes here. We're looking at our correct side and our removal entries. Correct side is where we just enter in the figures as they should have gone into the accounts. And the removal entries is whatever the accounts, whatever action we're taking in the accounts. We're going to show that here and then we're going to cancel it. The first note is a car lift purchase and credit for 4,000 have been entered on the incorrect side of the creditor's account. We're going to look at that first just to see what the correct transaction should be. A car lift purchase and credit. So a car lift, what does that mean? Well, at the top of the question I've just put in up here, D. Fahy is a garage owner. So a car lift for a garage owner. Garage owner sells cars. So a car lift is obviously a piece of equipment that they may use in their garage. So I have just gone and I've purchased a piece of equipment. I've increased the amount of equipment I have in my business, so I'm going to debit the equipment account. The second thing I have here is going to be creditors, because I purchased off of somebody on credit. To increase my creditors, I put it on the credit side. That's the correct transactions. That's what should have taken place. What actually took place? Well, the car lift was had been entered on the incorrect side of the creditor's account. Well, we know what the correct side of the creditor's account is, 4,000. So they had entered it on the incorrect side of the creditor's account. I'm going to show their entry in red. That's what they did. Okay, that's already been put through in the accounts. So we're not going to do anything with that figure. I'm just showing what they did. What else did they do? The only other entry made was a debit of 400 to the purchases account. So the other thing they did was purchases, and they debited 400. So again, they did it already, 400. I'm going to show that in red. How do I cancel both these figures? I just put them on the opposite side. I just cancel exactly what they've already done. 4,000 going in here on the credit side. I'm basically just cancelling their entry. Suspense. I'm going to take those two figures here in black and I'm going to transfer them onto the opposite side of the suspense account, and therefore I am balancing both sides. So our second note, D. Fahy's private car valued at 10,000 is presented to the business for resale. No entry was made, the car was later sold. Okay, so we'll look at the first part here. Private car was entered into the business account, so they put something from their private self into the business. They have gone and they've introduced capital. Capital is, of course, a credit side figure. Introduced capital, what else have they done? They presented it to the business for resale, so the business can now go and sell this on. They haven't sold it yet, but they can go and sell it. An item that we're going to sell down the line increases our purchases account. Purchases an expense account, therefore it has a debit side entry to increase it. That's the first thing. Next thing here, the car was later sold on credit to a debtor of the business. Well, if I sell something, I've increased my sales. My sales is a credit side again to increase it. And the next part of this is that it had been sold to a debtor of the business. Well, if I sell to somebody on credit, I've sold to a debtor, they now owe me money, and they're going to owe me 10,000 again. No entry was made in regarding the first part of this transaction. The second part, the cars that are sold on credit sale have been treated as a cash sale. So a cash sale, normal sales, adjustment sales, 10,000 to increase my sale. That was already done. It had been done by the business, so I'm going to show it in red. What else has been done? Well, the business has sold it. They put it through as a cash sale. So my cash account here had been increased. I'm going to show this in red because it's something that the business already has shown, for 10,000. So that 10,000 had already been increased on my cash account. That was incorrect. I did not make a cash sale, I made a credit sale. So I'm going to cancel the cash increase and I'm going to cancel the sale, even though technically that sale was correct. But I'm just going to show, just to make it easy, I always show the correct figures and then just cancel whatever happened. The suspense account is nice and easy. You just transfer over the two figures you put in, this one here and this one. We show them on the opposite sides. This one goes on here and the other one goes down on the opposite side. they're going to cancel each other out. So there'll be nothing left in the suspense account. It's note number 2. Note number 3. Fahy had returned a motor car previously purchased on credit from a supplier for 12,000. Entered this transaction incorrectly. Credit note has arrived, so that's the second part of the question. We'll look at the first part first. Fahy returned a motor car previously purchased on credit from a supplier. So if I purchase something from a supplier, I've made a purchase from a creditor. If I then go and return it, that's the purchases return. Purchases return. And the other account I'm dealing with is creditors. I've returned something. So purchases is usually a debit side because it's an expense. It's money we pay. So if I make a purchase return, I'm going to receive that money back. I should have received 12,000 back. Creditors, well, I usually credit the creditors account to increase the amount that I owe them, but in this case we are returning something. So I'm going to debit the figure because I no longer owe this to my creditors. I'm going to reduce my creditors account by 12,000. What else should have happened? Second part of the question. Credit note subsequently arrived from a supplier. Credit note is an amount where we're returning money because of a sale return or purchase return from a supplier, showing a restocking charge of €200 to cover the costs of the return, and that's regarding the entry that was made. So credit note arrived showing the supplier charged €200 for returning the item. So out of this 12,000 that I'm going to deduct from my creditor's account, I'm not going to receive all of it because 200 is going to be charged to me, so I offset that 200 from the 12,000. From the purchases return, out of the 12,000 I'm going to take out of my purchases account because it's of a return. 200 of it won't be leaving the account as that is money that I have paid toward purchases even though I don't have the product because it's a restocking charge. So these are just two figures just to offset the 12,000 as I'm not going to receive a full 12,000 here. So that's what should have happened. What did happen? Well, this had been entered into the accounts incorrectly as 1,200. So it had been entered into the correct accounts and it had been entered in just with the incorrect figure. So it should have gone on the credit side for 12,000, but it actually went in for 1,200. The second account is creditors. It should have gone in on the debit side for 12,000, but it actually went in for 1,200. So how do I cancel both of those figures? I put 1,200 on the opposite side. Second part, credit note. Only entry made in respect to this credit note was a credit entry of 11,000 in the creditor's account. So they made an entry, a credit entry of 11,800. How do I cancel it? 11,800. What's the difference? So this side both adds up to 12,200, 12,200. This side adds up to 13,000. This one doesn't. The reason it doesn't is both sides aren't equal, so I have to adjust my suspense account. My suspense account, everything from this credit side will be shown on the debit side. So that 1,200 in black goes here. Remember, I do not touch the red figures. They've already been entered. They're not changes we're making. This 1,200 and this 11,800 is both going to be entered on the opposite side, so the credit side. Obviously, these two are going to cancel each other out, which means 11,800 will be taken forward from the suspense. So note number 4. A payment of 500 was received from F. McFadden, who is a debtor, whose debt had been previously written off and who now wishes to trade again. This is 80% of the original debt, and the debtor is undertaken to pay the remainder of the debt in the future. So a payment of 500 was received from a debtor. Well, if I've received money, the first thing I can be sure of is that my bank account has gone up. I've increased my bank account by 500. Now the second thing that's happened, a debtor who is previously written off, that means I previously discarded them from my accounts. So they had owed me money before and then I took it out of the accounts, and now they're paying me again and they're undertaking to pay the remainder. That means that I have to take into account the entire amount that they owe me. €500 is what they paid me, but that's only 80%. The full 100% is €625. That €625 is money that they've paid me, and that they haven't paid me. It's the full amount of the debt. So I'm going to increase the debtors account again by 625 because we're bringing that debtor back to the business. Okay, they don't owe the full 625 because this debtor has paid 500. So you'll find that there'll be a kind of aggregate there of 125 that you can take for. What else happened? I brought through a bad debtor who's previously been written off. So there's a bad debt recovered. I brought it back into the business. So a bad debt recovered is a form of an income, therefore it goes on the credit side. What's going to go on the credit side? The entire amount that they have owed me, because I'm bringing both that amount back into the business. I've showed it separately here, 500 and 125. Same thing here. I could have shown this as 500 and 125 as well. It's the same. The 500 is the amount they paid, the 125 is the amount they haven't paid, but the full debt is 625. The full debt is 625. So what did they actually do? No entry had been made in the accounts. So what do I do in the removal entry side? I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do a suspense. Both sides equal up to 1,125. Note number 5. Fahy purchased goods on credit from Car Parts Limited for 3,000 plus VAT at 13.5%. The only entries in the accounts were the VAT exclusive figure. Okay, so these are the entries in the accounts. We won't look at that yet. So Fahy purchased goods on credit from Car Parts Limited. Well, firstly, we're not going to have any account called Car Parts Limited. Car Parts Limited is a creditor to the business. So I have made a purchase from a creditor. They are the two accounts that I'm going to be looking at first and foremost. What have I done? I've increased my purchases, so I'm going to debit my purchases account. But by how much? Purchases will not take into account VAT. I just want the number itself, how much the goods are worth on their own. So Fahy purchased goods on credit for 3,000 plus VAT. So 3,000 is going to go in here on the debit side as purchases because it's an expense. Creditors, I purchased off a creditor, so I owe them money. I'm going to increase my creditors by 3,000. But I also owe the creditor the VAT amount. They're going to charge me that as well. 13.5% of 3,000 is 405. So I'm going to credit 405 as well. They owe me that. And I'm also going to show a VAT figure down here. So the VAT figure is going to go on the debit side as I paid it. Paid it off to the creditor here. So technically this is a form of an asset. It's money you paid off to the government and you have to pay in the future. So that's why it's on the debit side. So what entries were made? The only entries were made where the VAT inclusive figure was entered on the debit side of the equipment account. So equipment account, VAT inclusive figure, debit side. So VAT inclusive figure is 3,405. It's the figure that includes VAT. And the VAT exclusive figure, so excluding the VAT, was entered on the credit side of the creditor's account. We don't have an account for Car Parts Limited. It's the creditor's account. The VAT exclusive figure was entered on the credit side. So VAT exclusive 3,000. Both these figures had previously been entered. So both these figures, I don't have to do anything for them. They've been entered. They're going to go in red. But I do have to cancel them. So on the opposite side, I'm going to show in black 3,405 for the equipment and 3,000 for the creditor. The difference being here is suspense. So my suspense account, I'm going to take both figures and enter them into the opposite side. So this 3,000 in black above on the debit is going to go here on the credit, and the 3,405 above in the equipment account is going to go on the debit side here. So I'll have 405 that I'll take forward from my suspense account. Now both sides are even, as they're both even here as well. That's the end of the notes.